Hello, everyone, and welcome to our other talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. I am your host, Noor Kyle.
And I am her faithful sidekick, Mushtaq Ali.
Yes, and this is our other talk. Unlike our usual Sunday talks, this one is our Sunday morning session, which we do every third Sunday of each month to accommodate the people who can't join us at our usual time. So this is 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And like I said, it's the third Sunday of the month. But in the evening, we'll be doing our usual talk at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. And that happens every week. So you can join us at one or both. And we would love to see you at both if you have that level of ambition. But you'll always be able to catch us on the replay. So I also welcome everyone here who's here with us live and everyone who might be joining us on YouTube. We want to thank you for being here. And tiny bit of a YouTube spiel. Sorry, we're letting new people in.
I got it.
You can help us out, of course, by, hanging out with us here live. You can join us on YouTube by subscribing to our channel, liking our videos, leaving comments, and engaging with everyone. And if you feel so inclined, we always invite donations. That's how we keep our work going. We do not ask people to pay to hang out with us, but we do
Yeah.
have those costs that keep us rolling, keep us on Zoom and all of those things. So for all of you who have donated thus far, we just ended our fund drive. Again, thank you so much for helping us out. Anything I'm missing, Mushtaq? Oh,
Uh,
yes, Facebook. You can,
yes.
I know everyone's kind of having their Facebook exodus moment right now. I don't blame you. However, if you want to join us on Facebook, we do encourage you to do so because that's where we have our Facebook group, the Nine-Sided Circle Forum. And if you want to keep in touch with us without social media, or even if you are connected with us on Facebook already or Instagram, join our email list. I'm going to be starting to use that as, kind of a not just a way for us to send out these Zoom invites, but perhaps like a newsletter once a month, something like that to help us all stay connected, even if we're not using
Yeah.
Facebook
And
technology.
we're going to be looking at Facebook alternatives too. We have a Discord channel, which we don't use for much. We may start making that more active.
We're going to figure this out
Yeah.
together.
Or we'll change the name of the forum to the Nine-Sided Circle Underground and just be a subversive element on Facebook.
In any event, we will keep you posted on that, so we'll keep you in the loop. All right, without further ado, let's get to our morning's topic. As I said, we have two talks today, two different topics. Ambitious. So, this morning, we were inspired by a conversation this week about Baraka. So, we'll be defining that term as we understand it, as we experience it, and as we feel it would be useful for all of us to collectively to grapple with it under this definition. So much talk. What was the catalyst for this discussion for you?
I don't even remember.
Well, it's an important topic because the idea of baraka comes up a lot in Sufi circles. It's, in terms of people who are drawn to the mystical, drawn to miracles and things of that nature, this term has a lot of weight. It is a word that often means blessing. It has a sense of the charisma that we often see when we meet perhaps a spiritual person, spiritual teacher, and we feel something from them. We feel some kind of charisma from them that has a power to it, a pull and an attraction, perhaps.
Yeah. And I think I ran across something somewhere or people were talking about the idea of Barakah as in transactional terms.
Oh, interesting.
We're going to do this, and then God will give us Barakah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes, yes, blessings, like you get, I call them God points,
Yeah.
where you do good things and then you get tokens or stickers for good behavior.
Gold stars.
Yes, gold stars. In another context, Baraka can also mean like special powers, not just charisma, but like
Yeah.
healing juju and all of that. So, as we mean it today, though, it's a bit more expansive.
Yeah. As we mean it, but we mean it perhaps in the oldest terms. So you find this word in Hebrew, in Aramaic, and in Arabic. And it means virtually the same thing in all three languages. And if you look it up in, say, an English Arabic dictionary, it's going to give you a whole bunch of possibilities and definitions. And, well, should we start with the Hebrew? Because that's slightly older.
Go for it. I think that's best.
Okay. So both of these use the same trilateral root, which is Be, Re, Kaf in Arabic, uh, pronounced slightly different in Hebrew. Its most common meaning is to bless. Uh, an example of that is the phrase Baruch atah. It means blessed are you. Can you get that, Noor?
I will take care of all this, don't
Thank
worry.
you. Interestingly, and this will get more interesting as we get to the Arabic, it also means to kneel, to bend the knee. Uh, and it is also in another derivation, it means a knee. And then we get to an even deeper meaning. Uh, you take the root of this and you add one letter, and it becomes a pool of water, a reservoir. Bear that in mind as we go along. And it also has a sense of to intertwine. And that's a figurative sense, to graft or to join or to intertwine. Uh, and then we get to the Arabic. Again, blessing or divine favor comes from the same root, berekah. When we say barakah, we just put an H at the end, a hey. Uh, and the idea in Arabic implies not just divine blessing, but spiritual abundance, grace, um, increase, prosperity. But it also has the idea of a pool of water. And think about it. If you are a desert people, what greater blessing is it than to have a pool of water? And that gets us to the idea of kneeling again. In Arabic, with one slight tweak, it can mean a camel kneeling down, which is, if you think about it, also an incredible blessing. The idea of being able to get your camel to kneel means that that camel is domesticated. It's part of your family now. It's not a wild beast. It is something that will work with you. And it's also a blessing because it means you don't have to try and climb up on the back of those things because they're kind of tall. It's not like jumping on a horse. In my youth, I could literally jump on the back of my horse if I wanted to show off for the girls. But I could never do that on a camel. So the idea for that, you also have deriving from the meaning is the idea to remain firmly in place and to increase or grow abundantly. I spent all of day before yesterday with my Arabic English dictionary just digging out these examples.
Yep. And these are reflective of the way that these languages, as I've often said, they have different facets to them, depending on the angle from which you look at these words, these bits of meaning that are then puzzled together. You can get all different shades of meaning.
Yeah. And culturally, it implies not just material gain, but spiritual richness. And that's a different thing. And in Islamic cultures, you invoke the Barakah eh, probably 100 times a day, if you think about it. You know, before you do anything, what do you do if you're a Muslim? Even not even a great Muslim, but even a half-assed Muslim, what do you do before you do anything? You say Bismillah, right? Bismillah ar-Rahmanir Rahim. And then you do it. And that's invoking the Barakah. You say something is going to happen, you almost always say Inshallah, right? If God wills,
Mhm.
evoking the divine blessing.
Yes, Munib says Barakallahu feek is quite common here
Yeah.
in Mubarak. So for a holiday, you might say Eid Mubarak, which is like blessed festival.
So, what is Barakah? Is it transactional? And we're here today to tell you that no, it's not transactional. And if it's not transactional, what does that mean?
It means I don't get gold stars.
Oh, you get gold stars every day, but it's from me, not from God.
Yay. All right. So what does that mean?
What does that mean? That suggests to you that if it's not transactional, our view is that Baraka permeates the universe, that it is everywhere all the time and available to each human being
Intrinsically.
intrinsically. And most of the time we don't notice. The reason that you get that hit a Barakah from hanging out with some holy person is because they remind you that it's there. It's not that they're giving you anything. They aren't giving you anything, not a single thing. They have nothing to give, but they remind you that it's there. And through entrainment, you open yourself to it. And if you're really lucky, you go, oh, that was there all along. Dang.
Or you get lost in the story about it and say, I need to be around that person because that's where I get the juice. That's where it comes from. They're my source.
So, our point of view is that Baraka permeates creation. It is a field that is in the smallest atom in the largest mountain. And it is present in people, in objects, in places, and interestingly enough, even moments in time. It, in a certain sense, transcends physical law because, unlike other resources, it does not diminish with use. And one of the gifts of it is sufficiency. To experience Baraka is to know that you have enough, to know that you are in harmony and you have spiritual fulfillment. So, how do you get this? Any ideas? If what we're saying is true, how do you get this? Yes, somebody popped their hand up.
Well, I've always thought of Baraka as a um, grace. And if there's a grace to Baraka, there's the suggestion that gratitude, which is related to grace, has something to do with that. So
Yes,
that's my
indeed. You
immediate
are
impression.
right in one.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah. It's like you've been reading my notes.
All right, so Grace, what else might help us tap into Baraka? James.
Well, if it's an omnipresent condition, then waking up in the moment would have to be an aspect of that. Um, if it's always there, it's even if you weren't seeking it specifically, if you're waking up, you would have to be perceptive of it. Yes, no.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there are two Arabic words that are they tend to knock around in Sufi circles: sukun and rida. Wael, can you define those for us?
Sukoon for me is close to a type of tranquility, a quite a high quality tranquility. When you have sukoon, you have you have presence that allows you to see and feel. Um, what was the other one that you said?
Rida.
Rida. Rida is pure راضي إنسان راضي. It's also a first name of many of a
Yeah.
male, Arabic name. Rida literally is thankfulness, gratitude, I would say.
Yeah.
Um,
Also contentment.
yes, but I like the sukoon. That was quite a
Yeah.
nice way.
Tranquility, serenity,
Mm.
that moment of perfect peace. When you have these two things, um, sukoon, serenity, and I mostly see Rida as Reza because in Iran they slap that name on everybody. Ali Reza, and all of that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And they're reminders. So the uh, cultivation of serenity, tranquility, and contentment. Contentment is an incredibly high state. I have been one of the school that says when you are reading Sanskrit and you run across the word ananda, it's most often translated into English as bliss, but that is a poor translation for me. Contentment is a much, much better translation of Ananda because when you are experiencing Ananda, it's not that you're high, right? It's not like you just smoked a bag of really good ganja and you're like, oh man, Ananda. No, it is knowing to the core of your being that everything is just perfect and could not be better. That sense of contentment. And then you can go out and smoke your ganja. Did I say that? No, I didn't say that. So, one of the places that we find the idea of Baraka is hanging out with saints and going to their shrines. As I said before, a saint will not give you Baraka. That's like giving a fish water. But they will remind you that you're breathing water. And it's the same with visiting sacred sites. In a certain sense, there is nothing more holy about one place than another. And what we think of as sacred sites. So let's say you go to Medina and you visit the Prophet's grave. You are very, very likely to experience a moment of spiritual upliftment. And it's nothing about the place per se, it's about what the place reminds you to be aware of. You have a certain expectation that helps you to change your consciousness, and you are more receptive to the baraka that is always there. And I have to admit, in my younger years, I experimented with this. I would take a group of people out and say, I'm going to take you to a sacred place. And I would just take them to some random place in the woods and say, this is it. This is a well of spiritual power. And they would experience that. And they wouldn't experience it because somebody did something there sometime that was of some effect, they would experience it because they allowed themselves to be open to the possibility of experiencing the universal blessing that exists for all of us at all times. That's kind of weird, huh? I'm not sure that that's entirely moral to do, but it was certainly interesting. And I was young. That's
I
my
was just gonna
excuse.
chalk it up to, yeah, you were young.
I was young.
You would
Youthful
not do that.
exuberance.
Yeah. So we do have some remarks in the chat that I
Lay it
thought
on us.
might be good to discuss.
Yeah, because next we're going to talk about uh, how to get more baraka in your life.
Yes. So hold that thought, Ian. Actually, if it's related to what we were just saying, go ahead, because then I'm gonna tap into the chat. So go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I got reminded of. One relating to what Mushtaq just said about sacred places. I think maybe that's why you can feel something in a church. Um, because when I was very young, I would feel something in a church. And I don't think it's because the church was sacred. I think it makes a lot of sense to say that it's because of expectations. And then the other thing, which I think is even better about Baraka being universal, is a verse from Kabir where he says, "The fish is thirsty in the water, and it makes me laugh."
Yeah, that would be a perfect motto.
Yeah. Thanks, Ian. Okay, so in the chat, we have a few things going on. Okay, so first of all, beauty. Yes. Okay, so Michaela says there is a verse in the Quran where Allah says, "If you are grateful, I will give you more." So gratitude results in more barakah.
Yep, that is absolutely the case.
And Chris is asking, I think this is about the conversation about Sukun and Rida and Ananda. Chris was asking, is this similar to Shanti?
Shanti uh, means peace, and Shanti is equivalent to salam. Um, so when we talk about tranquility, yes, tranquility is Shanti, is salam, and sukun.
In terms of getting to a place of uh, being able to, I'm going to say witness Baraka in the sense of experiencing it and being able to sense it. Um, RM was saying, uh, suggestions about that. Good intentions, higher values like compassion, empathy, growth mindset and rituals like saying salawat on our prophet, giving charity, waking up early, helping people, and of course, zikr and istikhara prayers, planting and caring for trees, doing wudu. And Usha mentions nature in silence, positive expectations, beauty. I mean, any and all of these things can help
Yeah.
us be reminded that Baraka is there.
And there's also a thing. I wasn't even sure I would mention it, but I probably should when it comes to places. Um, there is this idea, came from Rupert Sheldrake most recently, of morphic resonance.
Yes.
And I think that this is true. When you get a whole bunch of people expecting a place to have blessing, it is more easy to open up to the blessing. It doesn't give it more blessing, but it's like, oh, I can align with all of these other human beings, and there it is, waiting for me. So it helps break the inertia.
Yes. So we can see that these practices mentioned, these places mentioned, for some people that might work and for others it might not. But the key is to really figure out what works for each of us to allow us to increase our sensitivity and our ability to remember that this is inherent, this sense of Baraka, this sense of blessing. And as
So,
you're, yeah, I mean, we can encourage each other as well, inspire each other.
yeah. So here are four key four keys to uh, cultivating the opening to Barakah. First and foremost, dhikr, the remembrance of the divine reality leads to this. And I don't care how you do it, right? Doesn't matter whether you are doing the Arabic zikr, right? La ilaha illallah, or whatever you want to do, or if you are doing it in Hebrew. There are zikrs in Hebrew as well. They don't call it that, but that's what it is. You know, a classic example of that is the Shamach. Shamach Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Say, O Israel, the Lord is your God, the Lord is one. If you were a Hindu, you got plenty of zikrs. They're just called bhajans and such like, kirtans. So here's an interesting one. If you want to cultivate barakah, cultivate adab. Adab is a kind of etiquette, and it brings you towards proper conduct. And proper conduct invites divine blessing. What is proper conduct? It is not putting your right shoe on first. Proper conduct is meeting the other as subject. That's the whole of it. Adab is meeting the other as subject. It is not brown-nosing the sheikh. It is not um, mindlessly doing things that you are told are pious. It's not following the sunnah like a robot. It is experiencing the other as subject. Your behavior, if you do that, will be perfect, regardless of what your religion is. I know everybody thinks I'm going to go to hell for saying that because you got to put on your right shoe first. Eat only with your right hand, all of that stuff. Generosity is another one of these ways. Generosity doesn't mean giving stuff away or anything like that. What is a generous spirit? What does it mean to have a generous spirit?
Michaela says, give time, attention, care.
Presence as well. Give presence.
Lucia says, giving with no expectations.
Yep.
RM says, opening space for the other. Kevin says, the willingness to extend oneself for the sake of another. Chris says, lack of selfishness.
Yeah. So the next time you're walking down the street and some homeless person panhandles you, it's not the giving money to them that is generous. It is being present with them for a moment that is the generosity. And I talk with homeless people all the time. Noor and I have friends who make their living panhandling on the street. And one of the things that I remember one of them saying to me is, most of these people act like I don't exist.
Yeah. And you can see the range of emotions that they feel when they say that.
Yeah.
Accepting, angry,
Sad,
sad,
sad is there more than
yeah,
anything else.
lonely, hurt.
And then the last, shakur, you say in Arabic, gratitude. Gratitude is fundamentally acknowledging that your life is blessed. And somebody mentioned the verse in the Quran, if you are grateful, I will surely increase you. That's from Surah Ibrahim. Uh, and it's Allah says that not because he wants you to say, gee, God, you are so groovy. You are just so cool for giving me all of this stuff. That's not what it is. It is acknowledging that you are within the divine flow. And whether you know it or not, every single person has some reason to be grateful. So if you cultivate those four things, you open yourself up to Barakah. So there's a weird thing that's not mentioned much, which is that uh, Barakah as timelessness. Barakah can be experienced as a moment in time. And that moment in time will sometimes allow for extraordinary accomplishments in short periods. We see examples of that in some of the accounts of people who work with Gurdjieff, of him pushing them into a moment of time when they do incredible physical feats, or he demonstrates for them some sort of incredible feat of the work. But we also find that in acts of devotion. So,
Yeah, someone was speaking about those already.
yeah.
So this is where that comes into play.
Yeah. See, all of you guys know all this stuff
Yeah,
already.
you've
It's
got a
not like we're
feel
telling
for
you
it.
anything new.
Yep.
Now,
And it doesn't have to be anything formal. I mean, I think especially in Islam, people really rely on recitation, things that they remember that other people have said. But it's important to remember that sometimes it's better if it just comes from you, right from your heart, just as is, imperfect, honest, heartfelt. Don't underestimate the power of that.
so one of the things that is required to receive Barakah is intention, to act with intention. And there are two kinds of intention that work best for this. One is sincerity. There's the third to the last surah of the Quran is called Ikhalas, which means sincerity. It's about the divine unity, the oneness of, of of God, of the divine. But they don't call it oneness, right? They call it sincerity. Because one moment of realizing what that surah says opens you to barakah. And the other is generosity again. You experience Baraka most deeply where there is no ego or attachment to material gain. So for us, Baraka is more than a blessing. It is, it can be modeled as a, how do you say that? An energy. It's not really energy in the sense of electricity or anything like that. Doesn't move a needle, but we say metaphorically an energy that is available when you allow yourself to be open to it. And it is your own awareness, behavior, and actions that open you to it. Or you want to look at Michaela's last note?
Yes, I was just having some thoughts about that. Let's hold on to that. What L, do you have a thought? I mean, yeah, there you
I was just thinking if those four things are what cultivate barakah, dhikr, adab, generosity, and gratitude, what are the things that push barakah away?
Ooh, okay. Good question.
Being a Republican. Sorry.
Roll, lol, 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 lol. All right. Hold that thought. That's a very
And that's actually not true.
I think if you said MAGA, it would be much more true.
It would probably be much more true, except that, I know a few mega people and they are in fact generous and all of this other stuff. If it weren't for their politics, they would be wonderful human beings. It's weird.
okay. Hold that thought. Because something interesting has come up in the chat, which is maybe a good lead into that too. So,
Yeah, and we do need to take Wael's question seriously
of
as well.
course,
Yeah.
of course, of course. I'm not dismissing it at all. I just want to give enough space to it.
Yeah.
Um, Michaela says, I see this theme a lot in New Age community. People have now figured out, have people now figured this out, and to get more material blessings, they start gratitude journals.
And that's why they fail.
I mean, that's so interesting because this is what we do. This is what so many human beings do is we notice something real and then we try to find a way to commodify it.
Hmm.
See how we can spin it in such a way that we might be able to gain control and power over it, to exploit it.
And it becomes transactional, and that's when
Yeah.
it fails.
And this doesn't actually get to the thing. This is not getting at the truth. Yes. Kevin says the new age has, I mean, the new age as a phenomenon, as a, what is this? How do we frame it? But I think people do understand movement. Yes, the new age movement has a transactional relationship to Baraka.
Yeah. And they forget. I mean, a few weeks ago, for our Christmas talk, we looked at the teachings of Jesus, especially in the Sermon on the Mount. And he speaks exactly to that. Look at the lilies of the field, right? See how beautiful God dresses them. Do you think that your Father in heaven would not dress you even more beautifully? There is no need for transaction. Transaction kills Baraka. And we definitely need to remember that. Transaction kills Baraka. Yes, Ian.
Yeah, it occurred to me that in a sense, people who are doing that are trying to get the experience. The phrase it's in my head is on the cheap
Yeah.
because they don't want to do the real work that's required, and it's much easier to write in a journal.
Yeah, but the thing is, if that's the attitude, then you know something is missing in the process. You know right away that something is missing in the process, and it's incomplete. It's premature.
Yeah. And this is the problem with being a primate. We're stuck being primates here. And every primate knows that if they suck up to the head of the pack, they're going to get more goodies. And it becomes very transactional. I come up and I groom you and you let me have half of your banana. And this is not that.
Okay. So, um, Kevin adds, perhaps it's more like a field that one makes themselves available to with these practices.
Exactly right. That's the point of the whole talk.
Yes.
So you get a gold star and you get a gold star.
Everyone gets a gold star. Okay. So, RM says part of Baraka is detachment from results.
Yes, this is true.
Mhm. Okay, so
If you are doing, people say, do it for the sake of God. If you're doing it for the sake of God, you need to not care what God gives you back.
that's the weird part. It's
That's the
not for the
weird part.
sake of God, like God will give you pats on the head and tell you you're a good girl or boy.
Or half of his banana.
Yes. Just like we do things for the ones we love, not because we get a gold star or half a banana, but because we enjoy their joy. We want to see them happy. And even if it makes us a little miserable, accommodating them with our presence.
Yeah, and RM asks an interesting question here.
Yes. RM asks, is Baraka on Enneagram point 6?
And the answer is Barakah is the existence of the Enneagram.
Yes. It may be at point 6 where it becomes clear to
Yeah.
us that this is the case.
When we open ourselves to it.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. Um, let's talk about how we numb ourselves to Baraka.
Let's talk about that. What do you think about that?
Hmm. I think it is commonplace. I often say, oh, it's nothing to be ashamed of. And I agree with that here too. If you feel like you're not experiencing Baraka, that's extremely common. And the idea is just to take a look at that and see how you might tweak things in order to be able to experience Baraka. And Michaela says we take everything for granted. Yeah, this is lacking, I don't want to say lacking gratitude, but struggling to experience gratitude is one way in which we become numb to Baraka. And it does require practice from us on some level to be able to spot the reasons to feel gratitude even when it's hard. So, Mushtaq, what do you think are some of the ways that we numb ourselves to Baraka?
We curse ourselves.
Yeah. Yep.
Years and years ago, when we first started this, uh, we did a talk on curses and blessings. And this is basically self-talk.
Yeah.
When you spend all of your time speaking negatively about yourself and the world, that's what you get. It's it's the old saying from the hippie days, what you think is what you get.
Hmm. Yeah.
And James points out that we are wired to look for threats in our environment. Um, and that easily turns into stories of woe.
Yes. Yeah. And Kevin mentions guarding against beauty. Do you want to say more about that, Kevin?
Yeah,
What does
that's an
that mean to
interesting
you?
phrase.
Sure. It just came to mind because for me, one of the surest and most accessible ways to feel this field or energy or whatever you want to call it is to appreciate a good piece of either music or art. And there's a word in it came to mind. There's a word in Spanish called duende.
Yes, yes.
It's, yeah, it's often associated with flamenco, but I've heard one of my mentors use it as a way to describe the vibrating silence after um, a poem or a piece of music that just stuns the audience. And reminded me of that as well.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, one thing I'm thinking of triggered by that is this kind of sometimes it's fun to be cynical and sarcastic about things, but I think we can make a personality out of it. And when we lean too hard into that, that could numb us to beauty and to reasons to be grateful and dull our sensitivity to Baraka. So that's one thing that we'll have to watch out for. I mean, I really appreciate dark humor myself, and I would not want to change that. But I also know I need to balance that with a sense of appreciation for what is soft and lovely and tender, because I know that that's how I maintain my sense of remembrance that there is this undercurrent of blessing. So we need to watch out for our own cynicism. James.
I think a really hardcore example of this or related to it that comes to mind is cited in Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. He's talking about people surviving the concentration camps, not only physically, but how they survived mentally afterwards. Cited an example, I'm trying to remember. Two guys were walking through a field and they came to like a patch of daffodils or something. And one of them starts to stomp on the daffodils, saying, "Everything was taken from me in the camps. Now I'm going to take something." And his companion said, "No, in the camps we were taught the value of things. We should, treasure things more because of what we went through." Um, that maintaining the valuing of things despite going through the most horrific circumstances. Because it's easy for me to sort of see the value. I'm just finding this morning's talk uplifting. Because from my current perspective, I've had a charmed life. I don't know. Everyone can argue whether or not their life has been good or bad from all different perspectives. But that's just what this is bringing to mind quite clearly. I wish I had a copy of the book nearby. I probably do. I'd go hunting for the actual reference. It's definitely in there, I'm sure. Um, hmm, that's all I want to say on that.
Thanks, James.
Yeah.
Um, RM says curses are delusions of ego, which create veils to seeing Baraka. Yes, I mean, if we say, I can't do this, that's a curse in and of itself. And we have created a veil in the sense that we have accepted a foregone conclusion that something is impossible when it could very well be in our reach. It's just that for whatever reason, our ego is in the way, circumstances are in the way, and we are at a point of choice making, and we are choosing not to go forward. I do that a lot. I don't know about you all, but I have plenty of experience doing that, and that's one of my ongoing challenges is finding those places where I'm building up those delusions of ego and to take them apart. I want Baraka to be able to flow through me. I want to experience it flowing through me as it already is. And it becomes impossible for me to experience that flow if I'm getting in my own way. That doesn't mean it's impossible forever. It just points out where I have something to
Yeah.
work.
In that moment, it's impossible.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Um,
Yeah.
RM continues by saying, in ayat, a verse came to her mind from the Quran when Allah Himself asks humans, O mankind, what has deceived you concerning your Lord the Generous? This is from Surah 82, verse 6. Yes, James says the phrase, the superabundance of the real, comes to mind, but he can't remember where he heard it. Yes.
Doesn't matter. We'll steal it. We like
Yeah.
it.
RM says the transliteration of verse 82, verse 6. Yeah, 82. It's hard to read that. Chapter 82, verse 6 of the Quran. Um,
Gives the
um,
transliteration.
yeah. Okay.
And
Would someone?
Usha has something to say. Usha,
Yes.
say it. Tell us.
Yes. I would like to share something I just witnessed since few minutes. The kids are in the field, like Yusuf, your boy, and then two babies coming in the field. And it made me remember that I tap into Baraka much easier when I feel that child child energy, let's say like innocence, or when I'm traveling alone with my car and I don't know where I'm going and I have no plans and I can be fully in the moment, I'm like a child. I'm like in awe with the nature, like everything is an adventure. And this energy really, I mean, I saw a lot of miracles happening when I was in that space. And so I don't know how to put that in words in English, but child energy, it's probably not the right word, but you see that quality of
Yeah,
this.
you're looking for, I think, the term innocence in the
Mhm.
sense of you have not had a bunch of crap overlaid on your soul.
Unguardedness is
Yeah.
the word that comes to my mind.
Yeah, like to be totally like you expressed it before, like you know that you are looked after, so you have absolutely no worries to have, but just be in that moment and live whatever is has to live. But then also, I don't know, I have easier access to see the beauty in these moments too. And so yeah, thanks to the children and the babies that came in the field tonight.
Thank you, Usha. Kyle, I saw you nodding. Would you be willing to share your what's coming up for you?
Yeah, that was very interesting. This whole talk is very profound. And I have two things to say, but related to that, that yeah, we're born with like a childlike nature, and then society conditions us and conditions the mind. And I would say that the mind is kind of the enemy of Baraka. Um, so it's always taking us on trips and sending us separate ways from where Baraka is always here and available to us if we're willing to accept it.
Yep. And that's exactly right.
And then you proposed four ways to cultivate Baraka. I would like to propose a fifth,
Please.
which is because I'm so into kinesthetics, I would say, and I have a body, I would say through the body is the fifth way. And if you can keep the spine erect and stay still for long periods of time, you will naturally just see it and feel it. And the longer you can go with that and keep the mind aside, keep the mind still. And that's kind of like meditation.
Yeah.
Uh,
I would go further and say, as long as you can be present in your body, it will help bring that in. Some people will never be able to keep their spine erect, but Baraka is not closed to them.
But I think it helps it make it easier. Like we have a
Yeah,
body, and
probably so.
if we use it properly, we can really accelerate it because our time here is short.
Yeah. I'm just suggesting that while what you say is absolutely true, it can be greater than that. Somebody who is paraplegic can still experience Baraka through their body if all they can do is meditate on the sensation of their nose.
Sure.
What else says, in movement, there is Baraka. That's an Arab proverb.
And that speaks, I think, directly to your point.
And going back to one of the root words you said about bowing down,
Yes.
that's
Yeah,
talking about the same thing.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, this sense of kneeling. We talked about the camel kneeling and knees and how that can come into play with the various shades of meaning of the root word here. And what that brings to my mind is this idea of not surrender in the sense of being overcome by everything that's going on, but in the sense of allowing ourselves to release the freneticness of our times where we're checking emails and we've got text messages coming in and we have promptings to do this, that, and the other thing, family life, work life, trying to take care of our bodies. But when we do literal or metaphorical moments of just kneeling down and allowing ourselves to be with what is, to surrender to what is in the sense of being present with it and of being open to the sensory experience of Baraka being ever present.
Well,
I think that's important as well. Yes, well.
When in the beginning of the talk, when Mushtaq was giving you were giving the roots, and you did come to the kneeling, the first thing that came to mind was something I wasn't going to say, but I'll say it because why not? The image of when a camel, I'm not too sure whether you guys know, but when a camel is in a desert and it has to go over dunes, there are dunes and then they're like really, really, really steep dunes. And a camel will naturally find its way around in the easiest path. But when it comes to a situation where there's no easy path around this really monstrously steep dune, do you know what it does? It's you won't see it too often, but it literally drops to its knees and it crawls up this steep dune. And when it gets to the top, it's like a transformer. It goes, "Roop," and then you got this tall, majestic animal again. But I find that really fascinating, and I'm just guessing when life puts us in a situation where it is impossible to overcome something. I think if we get closer to that, what you were saying, Noor, just now, that acceptance. And I think that's when we feel the barakah. And in the camel's case, that's when it uses it to crawl up and ascend. I just wanted to share that.
I think that's amazingly evocative of what we're getting at here, which is that there's always a way forward, and sometimes it looks like surrender. It looks like kneeling down. Yeah. RM says, thank you, Wael. The kneeling is like the dark night of the soul. And when you feel the Baraka and you keep crawling and you transform, speaking for myself, I imagine that is coming out the other side of it, you know.
Yeah, and I can speak from personal experience. If you're a human and you run up to that same sand dune, you're going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going up on all fours
Yep.
because that's the only way to get up there. You learn from the camel. Camels are smart.
Mhm.
Yusuf, you have been so quiet today. What do you think? Let me put you on the
Um,
spot.
Thank you for that. Actually, nothing much to say. I'm enjoying this topic. It is again very timely because I feel like I need to feel Baraka in my life. Uh, of course, we always need it, but this period of time, I believe I need to open myself more to it. And I didn't thought about Baraka as it is everywhere and every time same. You know, I thought it has some kind of density. It is in holy places more dense than other places, or it is more dense in Ramadan than other period of time. But that makes sense. What you said makes sense because if it comes from the divine, it divine is everywhere with its presence, and it depends of my situation. That makes lots of sense. If I'm more open to it, then I receive it. If I'm not, I don't. I was in once. I was in Mecca and Medina, and at that time, I was actually very surprised because um, I didn't feel so. I didn't feel that Baraka so much in Masjid, Masjid Nabawi or Kaaba because it is somehow not the same as that period of time of Prophet's time. It is all changed, so there's I don't know. I wasn't prepared for it, maybe,
Yep.
but um, where I felt it? I felt it on top of or next to Jabal Uhud. Uh, because there is untouched almost. You can see the mountain as it is like 1400 years ago. So then I thought, okay, this is how I make that connection. I don't know. So and now it makes sense. It's up to my situation, my hal state or station. Yeah.
Yep. And you're not alone in having felt that way, you know. I think there are many people who are not who aren't able to catch the wave in Mecca near the Kaaba because of the way that it's been so commercialized and it's packed and people are trampling each other and all kinds of things of that nature. So Whereas people climb a mountain and they look out over the far peaks and they feel something deep inside that taps into that pervasive connection. And that's not, there's no banners marking this as a place of reverence and all of that stuff. And yet they feel it deeply there. I do think that we can tap into that sense of reverence even in the gutter if we're really open to it. Aw, thanks, RM. RM says, I feel Baraka in this group. Alhamdulillah. And Kevin says, thanks, Wael. That imagery of the camel kneeling over the steep sand dunes is very useful. I happen to live right next to the Great Sand Dunes National Park and can attest to the sand crawl method. Amelia.
Yeah, I almost laughed because I wasn't sure how ridiculous this would sound, but I honestly felt it in the mosh pit when I saw Venom
I
on a
love
different
that.
level.
Yes. So, what was it in that time for you that
Well,
evoked it?
yeah, well, I was a little unusual in that I was trying to actually dance in the mosh pit. A lot of people are mostly just slamming into each other. Um, but there was like space allowed for me from some people, for my dancing and being able to just be cautious of other people and allowing for them to do what they want in the pit safely, with occasionally bumping into them, but having an understanding that that's acceptable. It had a lot of weird dynamics that kind of felt it gave me this kind of feeling of this feeling Baraka a little.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah. Well, it would make sense though, because if Baraka is everywhere, it's in the mosh pit.
It's in the mosh pit. Yes,
Precisely.
exactly. James.
Um, this is almost following away from what Amelia was just referring to, because I'm thinking of moments when I've come into any kind of state of positive expectation of uplift, whatever, but without at the time relating it to any spiritual concept. And the advantage of the spiritual perspective is you start to realize there's something unconditional about the state of uplift, the perception of Baraka. Okay, Mel just referred to moshing. I was actually just thinking over the past 20 minutes, I've been thinking a lot about states of uplift in times of demand and trouble and stuff, and going back to the turn of the millennium when I was going through a brutal time, surrounded by the whole New Year. I think I've mentioned this to you before. The whole New Year period, the turn of the century had like several deaths associated with it and horrible stuff happening and friends going to jail and da 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 da.
Hmm.
The actual night of the millennium, uh, we went to the city to watch the fireworks and we didn't want to be in the crowd, so we broke into an abandoned building to get to about the fourth floor where they're actually launching the fireworks from the roof, and we were just below them. But as soon as we start to break into the building, for whatever reason, I went from being totally immersed in all this horror that had been happening and into just, I don't know, not just excitement, but a real sense of expansion. Now, that was without any particular spiritual context. But I think the spiritual context it clarifies what's going on, or it reinforces it deeper, or something. I'm having a hard time putting a finger on what exactly I'm trying to say. That if any sort of uplift, any awakening happens with the consciousness of the broader context, I think that grows something, that reinforces something. Um, yeah, that's all I want to say because I can't actually think more of what I'm trying to say. So I'll just have to leave it at that.
Well, I think you're touching on something interesting, James, and I'm not exactly sure how to verbalize this either, but
Yeah.
you're pointing to this idea that it's accessible to everyone. You
Hmm.
don't have to have, a faith tradition behind it to remember and tap into and have a sensory awareness of the fact that Baraka is ever present, right?
Hmm.
And those moments in time can happen to anyone where they recognize it without being able to name it or contextualize it. But I think being able to have the ability to contextualize it can allow us to have more agency over how frequently we might experience that, how consistently.
Is it even agency though? I mean, it's sort
Yeah,
of
I'm like struggling with the words. So
if
agency may not
oh,
be it.
if the intuition of oneness is clear at the time, then the state of uplift, like the intuition of oneness, I think is always unconsciously present because it's the truth, but we don't
Mhm.
consciously live it. I think
Yeah.
we sort of sub unconsciously intuit it, it influences us, but often we even reject it consciously. But if oneness is evident or acknowledged in some way, I don't know, the two reinforce each other. Uplift and oneness. On okay, look, I'm going to stop talking now because I really can't go any further with this. I can't think of anything else.
You've tapped into something interesting, James, and that's plenty. So,
Hmm.
yeah, just sit with that. Good stuff. What do you think, Mushtaq?
What, me think?
Give it a shot.
Um, I think the bottom line is that there is no place where you cannot experience and receive Barakah. There is no one who can give it to you. There's no one who can take it from you. That it is, and all you have to do is get out of your own way and receive it, to sound a little bit new agey. That's what I think. And that's probably a great place to end this talk.
Mhm. Oh, okay. Apparently what stops Baraka? Have we not fully answered that question? Michaela is saying, looking forward to Wael's question about what stops Baraka. Well, we have sort of touched on that already. I
Yeah.
mean,
And the answer is nothing stops Baraka.
yeah.
The question is, what stops you from receiving it?
Yeah, I said what makes us numb
Yeah.
to Baraka. Because that's really what it is. It's always there. It's just a matter of whether we are allowing ourselves to be conscious of its presence. Allowing ourselves, whether we are, you know what I mean.
Yeah. It's like the starving man in the vineyard who doesn't realize that grapes are food.
Yes. So, I mean, basically, bad conduct. I mean, let's turn everything on its head, right?
Uh,
Lacking
yeah.
generosity, lacking gratitude.
Yeah. Having bad adab or no adab.
Hmm. Yep. So treating the other as object, not offering others our presence, withholding it, perhaps. Many of us may find ourselves doing that when we're angry, when we're upset. Um, Being asleep, not remembering.
Yeah, that's the bottom line.
So with all that said, it's not complicated. Does that help answer that question? Because it is an important question. Well, Elle, you were the one who asked it first. Let's see if this
Yeah.
answers it for you.
It really does. I mean, flipping everything around to the opposite. Mushtaq also mentioned one that really struck me quite clearly is cursing ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Kills Barakah, that negative talk. So, yeah, it answered the question for me. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And movement came up as well. If we are neglecting the health of our bodies, as Mushtaq said, even a paraplegic can do things that allow themselves to be healthfully in contact with their physical being. If we neglect the body entirely, no matter where we're at in terms of our ability to do movement, all of that is irrelevant. Are we giving proper place to the body? If not, then again, we are getting in the way of our ability to sense Baraka. Okay, any last thoughts? Any last things that people want to share or ask before we
And we're already in Brady Bunch mode.
Okay. Chris, do you have any thoughts? It's good to see you.
Good to be here. My cup is full.
That's fair.
Well, if you have time, drop by this evening and we'll make it even fuller. We're going to be discussing the Sarmoon Brotherhood this evening. Gasp.
Woo. Yes. All right. So now that we're in Brady Bunch mode, thank you everyone for being present with us, whether you're here live or watching on the replay. It's good to have you with us. And we will see you again this evening at 6:30 p.m. Whether you're joining us again or watching on the replay. So we'll see you later. Take care, everyone. We can wave to each other. Everybody watching. See ya.
Bye.